From the Corner Office, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on everything talent acquisition, human resources, and recruiting. Presented by CornerOffice. Whether you're building teams, leading HR strategy, or hunting top-tier talent, you are in the right place. Please join today's hosts, Alan Ingram and Chatty G, who will share their insights, explore trends, and give you the tools you need to disrupt, transform, and supercharge your talent team. So let's get to work, pull up a chair in the Corner Office, and take a deep dive.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to talk about something I think we've all been through, right? Building a team and finding the right people. So we're going to dive into the world of talent acquisition today with a firm called CornerOffice.
Okay.
And their book, From Misfires to Hires, they've got a very interesting approach to talent acquisition. And they've gotten a lot of buzz.
Yeah.
Especially because of that crazy 91% retention rate that they're seeing with their clients.
Yeah, it really is impressive, especially, in today's market. I think one of the things that stands out to me is how they look at communication as kind of the linchpin of successful talent acquisition.
Yeah, and it seems so obvious. But I think, we can all relate to this. We've all been on either side of the hiring process.
Yeah.
Where communication breakdowns just completely derail everything.
Absolutely.
So let's get into it. CornerOffice, they've got some serious street cred.
Yeah, they do.
They've worked with a lot of the big names across a lot of different industries. I'm talking Chick-fil-A, Home Depot, Luxottica, Cisco. So they've seen a lot.
Yeah.
But before we get into the nuts and bolts of this, let's talk about the people behind this. The authors of From Misfires to Hires, Katie and Jeff Hoffman. They're the managing partners and co-founders of CornerOffice.
Okay.
And their backgrounds are surprisingly diverse.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So Katie, her background is in broadcast journalism. So she brings this really great ability to communicate clearly.
I see.
And to, tell a story to the table. And then you have Jeff, who spent 25 years as a coach in professional football. Talk about high-stakes team dynamics.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's no wonder that they've got this unique perspective on building high-impact teams.
Yeah, I can see that. So From Misfires to Hires, let's talk about the book. They start by painting this very, relatable scenario. Imagine trying to recruit for this critical role. But the job description is super vague, expectations are all over the place, and the feedback is very sporadic. What happens?
Oh, it's total chaos. You end up with, a pile of applications that don't make any sense. All the good candidates are frustrated and they go away. And it just drags on and on and on. It's very stressful.
It's a recipe for disaster. And they go through these real-world examples that really show how detrimental bad communication can be. They highlight these common pitfalls, like vague job descriptions, inconsistent feedback loops, and the disconnect that you often see between hiring managers and recruiters.
Yeah, it's not just about the practical side of it either. It's about the message that it sends, right? If a company says they value, transparency and communication, but then their hiring process is like this black hole, that's a red flag. Like, what does that even say about their culture?
Totally. And candidates can pick up on that, and it can make them question whether they really align with the values of the company. And this impacts employer branding a lot. In today's world, negative hiring experiences can spread like wildfire, and they can turn off potential talent before they even apply.
Yeah, you're shooting yourself in the foot before you even start the race.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And From Misfires to Hires really focuses on how to avoid that scenario. They lay out this very robust communication framework where they emphasize detailed job descriptions that don't leave any room for interpretation, structured feedback systems that include these regular check-ins, and crucially, they talk about aligning all of that recruitment communication with the company's culture.
That alignment piece is interesting to me. Can you give me an example of how they suggest companies should do that?
Sure. Let's say a company prides itself on being fast-paced and innovative. Well, their communication during the hiring process should mirror that. Instead of having these really drawn-out applications and weeks of silence, they might incorporate, video interviews, really quick turnaround times on feedback, or even collaborative projects as part of that assessment process.
So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. It's walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. It's about creating an experience that's consistent and reflects the reality of working at that company.
That makes sense. So we've got these three pillars: Detailed job descriptions, structured feedback, and this alignment with company culture. How do they suggest companies actually implement all this stuff? Seems like a lot to juggle, especially for bigger companies. They have to do a lot of hiring.
Well, that's where technology comes in. And the book doesn't shy away from that at all. They talk about using applicant tracking systems and candidate relationship management systems to streamline communication and manage that flow of applications and interactions.
Yeah, I can see how that would be really helpful for bigger organizations.
Yeah.
But isn't there a risk that you lean too much on automation and it ends up feeling really cold and impersonal? Nobody wants to feel like they're just a number in a system.
Yeah, you're right. And CornerOffice actually addresses that directly. They really emphasize that while technology can be really powerful, it should never replace human interaction altogether. It's about finding a balance between efficiency and genuine connection.
So it's not about just becoming this heartless hiring machine. It's about using technology to free up some time and energy, to focus on those interactions with the candidate.
Exactly. Like giving personalized feedback, asking thoughtful questions, and taking the time to understand the candidate's motivations and aspirations.
This is all great stuff, but we need to take a break and give everyone a chance to catch their breath. What do you think so far? Have you experienced any of these communication breakdowns, either as a candidate or as someone who is hiring? We'll be right back in part 2 to get even deeper into CornerOffice's strategies for communication and talent acquisition. Stay tuned.
So welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were really unpacking CornerOffice's approach to talent acquisition with this big focus on communication, and how that can really make or break the process.
Yeah, we were talking about finding that balance between using technology and keeping that human connection throughout the hiring process.
Which is tricky. It is. But From Misfires to Hires does give us a good roadmap for that. They go deep on each element of their framework, starting with those job descriptions.
Yeah, they're really big on having clear and precise descriptions.
Absolutely. They say the job description should be so well-defined that it acts as a filter. So it only attracts candidates who are actually a good fit for the role and for the company culture. You want to paint a real picture of what the day-to-day looks like, what skills are needed, even the company's values and their work environment.
So no more vague descriptions that leave the candidate guessing.
Exactly. They're all about transparency and honesty, even about the challenging parts of the job.
So you're setting expectations right from the start.
Right. It's about getting the right people, not just a ton of applications, which saves everybody time in the long run.
That makes sense. But how do they suggest companies even create these super detailed descriptions?
Well, one technique they talk about is getting different people involved. So it's not just the hiring manager saying what they want. It's getting input from the team, from HR, even from potential candidates, to get a really full picture of what the role is.
I like that. So you're getting different perspectives and not missing anything important.
Right. And speaking of perspectives, let's move to the next part of their framework, the structured feedback systems.
Yeah, we touched on this a little bit before, but I'm curious to hear more about what they recommend.
They're all about consistent and timely feedback at every stage of the process. So you're talking regular check-ins between the recruiters and the hiring managers, using standard feedback forms so everyone's on the same page, and being quick to get back to the candidates no matter what.
That sounds like a big change for a lot of companies. I bet a lot of them are still doing things the old way.
You're right. But CornerOffice is saying this change is super important to give candidates a good experience, to build trust, and to get that top talent. They even suggest getting feedback from the candidates to see what could be better.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just one way. You're making it a conversation.
Exactly. And that leads us to the last piece, aligning all that communication with the company culture.
We talked about this idea before. But how do they actually suggest companies do that?
There are lots of examples in the book. But one is using what they call cultural touch points. So throughout the hiring process, you're finding ways to show off the company's values and personality.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Say a company is all about working together. Well, instead of doing the usual one-on-one interviews, they might do group exercises or give the candidate a problem to solve, to give them a feel for what it's like to work there.
I like that. So you're not just telling them about the culture, they're seeing it.
Right. And it goes beyond the interview. It's the tone of your emails, how quickly you get back to them, even your website. Everything should match the company's brand.
This is all great, but it's a lot. It seems really hard to do all this, especially if your company's used to the old ways.
I get it. And that's where From Misfires to Hires really helps. They give you really specific stuff to actually make these changes.
Like what?
Well, they have templates for those detailed job descriptions, examples of feedback forms you can use, even scripts for how to talk to the candidates.
That's really helpful. It's like they're giving you a step-by-step guide.
Exactly. They've done the hard work for you. And speaking of tools, let's talk about technology.
Yeah, we've been dancing around that all day. How do they balance this focus on the human side with the fact that everyone's using tech for hiring now?
They know technology is here to stay. And they say if you use it the right way, it can make communication better and the whole process more efficient.
But how do you avoid going too far with automation and losing that human touch?
That's the big question, and the book talks about that. They give you a balanced approach, showing you how to use tech but still connect with the candidates.
What are some of their suggestions?
Well, one is to use tech for the boring stuff. So the recruiters and hiring managers have more time to talk to people. They also say you can use tech to make the experience more personal, like sending emails that are tailored to the candidate.
So you're not replacing human interaction. You're using tech to make it better.
Exactly. And they also talk about using data. You can use tech to gather information and see what's working and what's not.
This is really giving us a clear picture of how CornerOffice sees the future of hiring. It's not just about tech or just about people. It's about finding that middle ground, where they work together.
You got it.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So we've been talking about from misfires to hires, and I think it's fair to say they've really changed the game when it comes to hiring.
Yeah, they've definitely challenged how things are usually done.
And they're not just talking about it. They're actually doing it. Remember that 91% retention rate they've gotten with their clients?
Yeah, that's incredible. It really shows that building those relationships throughout the hiring process is so important.
It makes you think about all the problems with high turnover. You lose productivity, you have to constantly hire new people, and it's just bad for everyone's morale.
It's a nightmare. But CornerOffice shows us that it doesn't have to be that way. When you focus on communication and making the experience good for the candidate, you're setting yourself up for success in the long run.
Yeah, it's not just about filling an empty spot. It's about finding the right person who's going to do well and actually stay with the company.
Exactly. And that all starts with how you communicate during the hiring process. You got to be clear about what's expected, give feedback quickly, and show what the company's all about.
This book is really a masterclass in how to hire the right way.
It is. Anyone who's involved in hiring should read it. It's full of practical advice, real examples, and those step-by-step strategies we talked about. They even give you templates and scripts to use.
And speaking of getting started, I have some exciting news. From Misfires to Hires is going to be available on Amazon on December 3rd, 2024. So mark your calendars, everyone. Get ready to change how you hire.
It'll be worth it.
Before we wrap up, though, I want to leave you with one last thought. We've talked a lot about what companies can do better. But what about the people looking for jobs? How can you communicate better and show yourself in the best light?
That's a good point. Think about how you're presenting yourself. Your resume, your cover letter, what you have online. Are you showing off your skills and experience the right way, in a way that matches your goals and interests the companies you want to work for?
Remember, the hiring process goes both ways. It's a chance for you to figure out if this company is right for you. Don't be afraid to ask questions, have conversations, and say what you need and expect.
Most importantly, be yourself. Companies want people who have the right skills, but they also want people who fit in with their culture. Show them who you really are.
Great advice. We hope this deep dive has given you some useful insights and some practical ways to improve how you approach hiring, whether you're the one hiring or the one looking for a job. Remember, communication is key. Build those strong relationships and watch your hiring process become so much better. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those conversations going.
Thanks for listening to From the Corner Office. If you found today's conversation valuable, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share with your network. This podcast is brought to you by CornerOffice. With decades of combined experience, our mission is to empower CHROs and talent acquisition leaders with the tools and expertise to assess, disrupt, and innovate their talent acquisition strategies, resulting in higher retention of top talent. Schedule a free consultation by visiting gocorneroffice.com. Let's supercharge your hiring success together.